Hi, I'm Nicola. I'm an Australian living in Seoul, South Korea with my Korean husband and our 2 kids. So recently we were in Australia, just me and the kids. We were in Australia and I share a lot of stuff on Instagram, and this question came up a few times. Our kids are bilingual. Do we maintain that bilingualism while they're in Australia? I'm sitting down now to talk about this, and I've been wanting to do it for weeks. We came back from Australia, and then there was Sola, which is Lunar New Year. My daughter is back at daycare, but my son is not back at school yet, and he's at art class right now, so I'm trying to get this done while I can. We do the one parent, one language method with our kids. So I'm speaking English to them always, and my husband Hugh is speaking Korean to them always. But they're living in Korea, in Korean environment, going to Korean daycare, going to Korean school, and family is Korean, and their friends all speak Korean. So Hugh had to stay in Seoul for work. There's a lot of really big events that his company does over Christmas and New Year's, so he had to stay here. But I took the kids to Australia for a month. So if Hugh is not with us, do we maintain that bilingualism? And the answer is no, we do not. The kids spoke English for a month and they only spoke English, except for when, you know, they're calling Hugh on the phone and they're talking a little bit then. Well, Yule is, Jisoo not so much because she's only 3. So we see this time in Australia as like going to intensive English camp. So the kids are native English speakers. They've been speaking English since they, you know, have been able to talk, but they're not in an English-speaking community, an English-speaking environment. They see English. There's a lot of English in Korea. They see English signs, and a lot of people, you know, do sometimes use English with them, and they're getting English from me and my friends, like other moms as well. But they're not in an English-speaking country, an English-speaking environment. So doing this is hugely beneficial to the kids because now they're suddenly in a completely English-speaking environment. And there are other times that we go to Australia and we might be in a Korean area and they'll be with Hugh, or there'll be some friends that are Korean and they might be speaking Korean. So can be elements of Korean in Australia, but the last trip we did, everything was English. So being in Australia really gives them a big boost for their English skills, and it also means that they are often around other kids that are just native English speakers, and they fit in fine. I always kind of like judge where their English skills are, and I think they absolutely just sound like Australian native English speakers. But kids get a lot of the way that they speak from other kids, and even their friends in Korea that speak English, that are bilingual as well, they tend to speak more Korean in Korea, obviously. And so they don't have as much exposure to just, you know, other random kids just speaking English all the time. So although they're native English speakers, their circumstances are different from, you know, like the average Australian kid. There's lots of kids in Australia that are bilingual as well, but if you go to a playground, you know, it's mostly going to be English. Now, if we lived in Australia and we were raising the kids bilingual, probably it would be very different circumstances. So we go, you know, for these trips for 1 month and everything is in English and it's a great boost for them. Now, if we were living in Australia, we would completely change what we were doing. So it works for us doing the one parent, one language method in Korea because it really balances out the languages. They get like a good amount of each language so that they can be native speakers in both language. But it's a lot harder to do that in an English speaking environment where English is the dominant language. Probably we would do it in a way that the at home language would be Korean, and then outside of the home things would be in English. This would be much more difficult for me, so I would be focusing a lot more on my Korean skills if we were doing that.
Please cool down the heat. Please cool down the heat. Oh, after.
Is there someone here?
Yeah.
Is there a few drops of rain?
And please water the plants. La 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 la.
There we go. Look, raindrop. A raindrop.
Oh, Tim, I'm getting wet. There's big one on me.
A little bit of rain.
My song worked.
Your song worked.
My song worked.
I will make another video about how to do the one parent, one language method, and possibly about the other ways that people can do it as well. I think also, even doing the method that we're doing, you still need to be flexible in some ways as well. And you really need to look at what the quantity and the quality of language input that your kid is getting. So my kids had a great time in Australia. So they were with my extended family, and we did, you know, a lot of the Australian things, like going to the beach and all that. So they had a really good time. It's not just language, but it's also the culture as well, and how you interact as an Australian, how you interact with other Australians and that. And then there's sort of the contrast. They come back and it's Lunar New Year, and it's like, well, this is now how you interact with Koreans for these important things and these important ceremonies and that type of stuff.
Can I do this one?
Okay, do you want me to hold the base and you hit hard?
Oh, I think he's getting it.
Oh,
Candy. Wow.
So what happens when they do come back to Korea and they've had a month of speaking English? How easily is it to just switch back into Korean and Korean society? Well, Yul does this pretty easily. So he's 7 now. And he's confident in both languages. Both languages are natural to him. So he comes back into Korean pretty easily. Jisoo only just turned 3, so she's still, you know, learning how to talk pretty much. Our previous trip the year before, when she came back, she went back to Ordin Egypt to daycare and was speaking English to her teachers for a little while until she sort of corrected to Korean. She was okay going back to daycare this time. She, you know, the teacher said she was speaking Korean and that was fine. But for a few days with Hugh, with her father, she was still speaking a lot of English to him. And I think her brain must have been like, okay, well, Appa, you understand English, you speak English, you're speaking English to Mummy. Why do I need to speak Korean to you? You understand me if I speak English. And this is kind of the way that kids' brains can work, that if they don't see a language as super valuable, they're going to just drop it as soon as they can. They're like, what is the point of having 2 languages? So you really do have to enforce that. And now, like, she was with Hugh last night and he said that she was speaking so much Korean. So like a few weeks have passed and she's, you know, she's back speaking Korean with him.
Look. Huh? Peanut. Well, not actually a peanut.
Spinosaurus.
Are you happy? My favorite.
Your favorite.
There's a baby.
A mummy and a babies.
And it's real.
There's some baby ones too.
Interestingly, the kids speak English to each other, and it's sort of like, I guess, what at the moment that's what they've kind of settled on. They watch TV and stuff in like both languages. They'll switch easily from a show that's in English to something that's in Korean, but like to each other they're speaking English. And maybe that's the influence of there's so much English in their home life, you know, because I'm the primary child carer, so I'm the one here speaking English to them, and so, you know, that's what they're doing. What are you colouring in?
Okay. It's this leaf.
A leaf. What colour are you doing the leaf?
Pink.
Pink.
It's pretty.
Very pretty.
Mom,
Mm?
green mouth, please.
Did your mummy colour the mouth in green?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Oh, you did it. Good job. You did it.
Yeah. Mom, this is the silly one.
Oh, it is a silly face, isn't it? What is he doing?
I know. His, that's his tail. out.
It does have his tongue out, yes.
You use blue.
I use blue? Okay.
But luckily our situation and our circumstances means that my daughter Jisoo will retain Korean and she will see the importance of it, because unfortunately if you drop a language when you're young, your brain rewrites those cells in your brain. Like, it's not like it's buried there and then maybe later when you start studying it will come back. No, it's gone. And this is something that a lot of like Korean adoptees can talk about. Like, I've heard people talk about, they've seen footage of them as a child, or even just Korean Americans, that when they were young they could speak Korean, and they see footage of themselves and they're speaking Korean as a child, and then now as an adult that has completely gone, and they really have to start at the beginning again, like, to learn the language. So I hope that answers the question for people that were wondering that. I think our situation is very different from intercultural families that are living in Australia or the UK or the US, where English is predominant, and it can be hard to make kids see the value of learning Korean or another language, because not only are our kids in Korea, Korean environment, Korean everywhere, speaking Korean all the time, but they get extra help with their Korean as well, being from a multicultural family. So for Yul, he did extra classes at a local family center, the region's family center. The teacher at school makes sure that, you know, everything is fine. There are lots of resources for us in Korea. But if the kids were in Australia and maybe on weekends they're doing Korean classes at Korean school or something like that, it's just not the same level of support that they can get in Korea. So because of this, I feel completely comfortable taking them to Australia and just being like, it's English time. Speaking English is speaking English with everybody, because that is a real benefit for them, and just to be around native speakers all the time. A lot of other families though have different circumstances, so I believe that how you do things really has to be adjusted to your circumstances, and that's stuff that I will talk about in another video. There's a bunch of different ways to raise kids to be bilingual, and a lot of what you decide to do is really going to be from you looking at your circumstances and the exposure of each language the kids get, and working out a plan from there. Because you really do have to have a plan. It doesn't always just happen naturally. Even having, you know, each parent speak a different language, it never ends up being this sort of equal thing where you don't need to do anything else. You need to have a plan, you need to have a strategy, and that's all things I will talk about in another video. Also, as my kids are getting older, I can sort of see how they adjust to each culture. So when they're in Australia, they feel very Australian, and they come back to Korea and they feel very Korean. But we make sure we have a lot of conversation around identity and culture and that type of stuff, and it's also something that we can talk about in another video. So if you have questions as well, you can leave them down below. Subscribe if you haven't already and you want to see more videos talking about being intercultural family, about bilingualism, and when Yul goes back to school and things calm down a bit, there'll be more videos coming. Okay, bye bye.
Ooh.
It's not dark now.
It's not dark now. It's getting dark though.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting dark.
The cockatoo. The food.
Is he stealing their food? What a cheeky cockatoo. Did the lemur scare the cockatoo away?